G'day guys, my name is Ben and you're watching The Long Gun Project. G'day guys, my name is Ben and this is The Long Gun Project. This video is an appendix video to episode 1, focusing specifically on reloading gear that you'll need for large calibers, and also just a bit of an overview of the reloading process that I personally use. The main items that I'll be talking about today is the reloading press, the dies, loading block, and powder dispensing. Now the first major item is the reloading press. You're going to need a 50 cal capable reloading press because it'll provide enough space and travel to allow you to work with such a long rifle cartridge. So the next item I wanted to talk about was reloading dies. So it's pretty uncommon for the majority of gun shops in Australia to have dies for things like 375 Chi-Tac, 408 Chi-Tac, 416, 50 cal on hand as an on-the-shelf stock item. But generally speaking, they can get it, they just order it from the United States. It'll just take a little bit longer. When you do order them, find out what size the outside diameter of those dies is, because if you're like me, they won't screw you directly into the top of your press and you'll have to have an adapter made up. Now the next item I wanted to talk about was reloading blocks. If you've been reloading for a while, chances are you've probably got one of these bad boys. So this is a multi-caliber bog standard loading block. Takes most cases and calibers in one of its various sized holes, but 375 Chi-Tac doesn't fit in any of them. So you're going to have to get something that is specifically made to accommodate a cartridge of this size. Otherwise you're doing it all over the bench top, and because if you're like me, you have fat fingers, you'll knock them over, they will spill powder everywhere, and then there will be tears and snot and nobody wins. The last thing to talk about is powder dispensing. There's two main ways you can do this. One is to use a manual powder thrower and then trickle feed your powder onto a set of scales to bring it up to the required weight, or you can use an automated powder dispenser. Now if you're thinking that using a manual powder thrower and accepting whatever it gives you in terms of powder charge is good enough for long range shooting, I've got news, and it's all bad. I've found, like many before me, that by measuring every single powder charge that you load, you're going to have more consistent velocities and lower standard deviations, all of which leads to accuracy at long range. Consider, for example, if you have a cartridge and you've got the seating depth absolutely spot on, but you're taking a powder charge from a manual powder thrower and you're not weighing it, you're just accepting what it gives you. Your charge could be different by up to an entire grain. So if your velocity has that much deviation in it, you will not be able to achieve all the potential accuracy that that load could give you. The last thing I'd like to do is share with you my personal process that I use for loading rifle cartridges. I use the same process for all the rifle cartridges I reload, and for me this has yielded very consistent results which have allowed me to shoot quite accurately to the extent that I'm capable with the rifle that I have. Now I'm going to be demonstrating this reloading process using a 6.5 Creedmoor. The first part of the case preparation phase is resizing and depriming. Now bear in mind that I'm only trying to bump the shoulder of the cartridge about 1/2 thou. Any more than that and I'll start to overwork the brass. All I need to do is resize the case just enough to allow the cartridge to chamber easily without any undue force on the bolt handle. So the next stage is tumbling. I use a stainless steel wet media tumbler, and I find that it gets really great results because the stainless steel pins get inside the case and clean that, as well as get into the primer pocket and clean that extremely well also. And the final part of case preparation is chamfering. I use a hand chamfering tool to chamfer the outside and inside of the mouth of each case. The next stage in my reloading process is priming and charging. I like to use a hand priming tool for priming all my rifle cartridges because it allows for a greater level of feel. If I have loose primer pockets, I will feel that whilst using the hand priming tool. If I'm using the priming tool on the press, I don't have as much feel and I won't notice that as quickly. The next stage is charging. As discussed before, I choose to measure every single powder charge that I put into each case. The last step is bullet seating. I seat the projectile to the required depth and then double check it with an ogive gauge and a set of calipers. Now some of you may be asking the question, is it worthwhile batching projectiles and batching brass? The answer is, yeah, absolutely. You can improve the accuracy of your loads by improving the consistency of every component. It's just a matter of weighing up whether batching brass and projectiles is going to result in an improvement of accuracy that you are going to notice at your intended shooting ranges. For example, I don't batch my PRS brass and I don't batch my PRS projectiles because in a PRS match, the accuracy that I'm obtaining from my firearm is more than enough for the ranges that we shoot here in Australia in a PRS competition. Guys, that concludes our appendix video to episode 1 on reloading gear for large caliber rifles and on the reloading process that I use. Hopefully you found this video to be interesting and useful. If you have, please don't forget to hit subscribe. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Long Gun Project. Cheers!